NBA draft, Cavs third overall pick. Cade Cunningham likely to go number one. Who's the best fit for the Cavs that isn't named Cade Cunningham?
That's a great question. I think that, theoretically before the draft, you look at three players. Cunningham's obviously going first to the Pistons. The kind of mystery is what the Rockets are going to do at number two. They're going to choose one of three players. They're either going to choose Evan Mobley from USC, the center, or Jalen Green, the G League guard, or Gonzaga guard, Jalen Suggs, who everybody is really familiar with because they just saw him, go through that undefeated season until the national championship game. But one of those three players, or two of those three players, are going to be available for the Cavs, and I suspect it'll either be let's just say the Rockets go with Mobley at number two, then that'll leave Suggs and Green, and I think the Cavs will go with one of those two. We've heard Jonathan Kuminga, also from the G League, who I heard had an outstanding pro day working out in front of teams in Chicago, and Kobe Altman was there. The Cavs were represented, so I know they really like him. His agent, Aaron Carter, who also represents Victor Oladipo and Kevin Knox and Terry Rozier. Well, Aaron is a Cleveland guy also. He went to Orange High School. So I think that Aaron would love to see Jonathan Kuminga work his way up into the top three and come to Cleveland. And I think that that's a possibility. That's kind of a surprise possibility. But there's a lot of people who say that he could be, one of the top three players to come out of this draft, and a very good draft. So there's a lot to consider there. I think it'll come down to one of those four. It'll come down to Mobley, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, or Jonathan Kuminga. And I think if there's an odd man out in that group, it might be Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga. But, listen, teams don't tip their draft hat or show you their draft board very often, if ever anymore. So a lot of it's going to come down to what the Rockets do. And the Cavs are also kind of having some little bit of conversations about that number three pick and seeing if anybody will, mortgage the farm for it. And if nobody does, I'm sure they'll be happy to make that pick there, because this is supposed to be one of the best drafts in a long, long time.
If they do, in fact, keep Sexton and Garland, can either of the Jalens coexist with those two guards, or is that a tough match, tough mix of guards there?
I think it's kind of tough for a couple of reasons. Number one, you don't draft a guy at number three to bring him off the bench for his career. And Garland and Sexton are both very young guys, right? I mean, one's 21, one's 22. Then you're going to be drafting a 19-year-old. Presumably, if you take Suggs or Green. And, you also have kind of an undersized small forward in Isaac Okoro, who's 19 or 20 years old. So there's a lot of youth at those positions. And it's just tough to kind of get those guys. And it would be really tough if you got a Jalen Green, for instance, and then you told Colin Sexton, you're moving to the bench. And it's only tough because you've kind of made Colin Sexton the face of your franchise, and he's been the team scoring leader and a great example of how to be a pro since he got here. Since LeBron left, Colin Sexton's been the face of the franchise, and it's tough to tell that guy you got to come off the bench, and not to mention the fact that he's got to potentially going to seek a max contract. You want to pay your sixth man max money. So there's a lot to consider there. I think that basketball wise, sure, Suggs or say Jalen Green, Darius Garland, and Colin Sexton would work just fine. It would be awesome. But I think that this being a business, there's a lot of other things to consider. And I just don't think the chemistry and cohesion would be there. I think if they go with one of those other guards, whether it's Suggs or Green, they're probably going to have to move on. And I don't think that they want to move on from Darius Garland. I don't think they even want to move on from Colin Sexton. I just think that they know it might be the best move in the long run if they end up getting one of those guards.